everybody? My name is Abeni Jewel Haynes.
And I am Frederick D. Haynes III.
And this is the Haynes Remix. So welcome back to the Haynes Remix, everyone. This is our second installment of our soft launch. And as you all know, I make up one half of this dynamic daddy-daughter duo. And I am here with the Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III. He just has to make sure you all know his full and entire name. So we're here to offer some insight and perspective, blending my dad's wisdom and experience with
my daughter's fresh, bold insights from the culture and from her millennial wisdom. And especially today, I'm excited because we are dealing with something that is so crucial, and that is what's happening in Gaza, the genocide funded by the United States of America, the genocide in Gaza and the explosion of the devastation of human beings right there in Palestine. And we refuse to be silent. So here it is. It's time for the remix.
All right, so every episode, my dad will give an inspirational vitamin and remix his take on a scripture, and then he will give us a quick word. So, Dad, do you have a word and a scripture for us today?
Listen, the word is so appropriate for today. It's Micah 6:8. Micah, that 8th century prophet, says in chapter 6, verse 8, the context of it, really it is, according to many biblical scholars, it's a courtroom scene. And Micah, according to many, is a policy document. Listen to what God says in Micah chapter 6, verse 8. We often hear it as, He has shown thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. Remix it, Freddie Haynes. The remix says, God has shown you, humanity, how to live your blessed life. What does God expect of you? Construct a world of justice, moral consistency, and loving compassion, and walk humbly with God wherever God is showing up in the world. I love that right there, because Micah, that prophet, is addressing a people who have turned their backs on God while calling themselves worshiping God, praising God. And God at the beginning of chapter 6 says, listen, I'm tired of your sacrifices. I'm tired of your praise. I'm tired of your festivals. I'm showing you how to live your blessed life. If you live your blessed life, construct a world of justice. A world of justice. What is justice? Justice is love showing up in our policies, our systems, our structures. Construct a world of justice. And when you construct a world of justice, it's fueled by compassion for everyone. No wonder Vincent Harding says, do you want to be free, or do you want everyone to be free? Construct a world of justice fueled by compassion. And when it's fueled by compassion, then you show up wherever God is showing up in the world. Alan Bosack, the Reverend Alan Bosack, scholar, prophet extraordinaire, puts it like this: God is showing up in those places wherever humanity is being hurt, wherever people are being othered and oppressed and made to feel less than and not equal to. That's where God is showing up in the world. And so if you want to live your blessed life, then you show up where God is showing up and construct a world of justice fueled by compassion, love for everyone. And when we do that, that's when we're living our blessed life. Hey, I think that's a good remix, especially for today's discussion. God bless you. Now y'all go ahead and do the just thing.
So know that we have a special guest today, don't we?
Do we ever? This is my brother from another mother. I'm talking about the Imam Omar Suleiman. Omar Suleiman and I have been in the struggle together on so many occasions. Omar is that brother who shows up. Jordan Edwards, shot by the police, and we gather to stand for justice. Guess who shows up? Omar. Botham John, shot in his own apartment by a former police officer. Guess who showed up? My man, Omar Suleiman. I could call the roll of the many times when injustice has taken place in our community, and Omar has been right there. Formally, I'll just say Omar is an American Muslim scholar, activist, community person who is just about that justice life. As a matter of fact, Omar is noted for his social justice and interfaith dialogue work. He is the founder and president of the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research.
Yes.
Thank you. An organization dedicated to addressing contemporary issues faced by Muslims through scholarly research. Suleiman is also an adjunct professor of Islamic studies at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. He's an eloquent orator. He is a prophet. He is a freedom fighter. And again, my brother from another mother. I'm too excited. I can't even hide it to introduce to some, present to others. That's what we say in the black church. Imam Omar Suleiman. I'm too excited to engage in conversation with someone who Ted Cruz has listed as an extremist, put me on the list with him. And so this lets all of us know that this amazing Imam, faith leader, Omar Suleiman, Omar has always been on the front lines for anything having to do with justice, anything having to do with what is right, liberating oppressed people, standing against injustice. And so to welcome Omar Suleiman to the Haynes Remix is, like, for me, a huge honor because I so appreciate this brother. And I wanted to have this conversation with you, Omar, about what's happening in Gaza. Let's call it what it is, genocide that is being financed by the United States of America. We are watching in real time atrocities on top of atrocities. And so we're talking about a famine that has been human induced. We're talking about children dying. Omar, what I want to do, though, is, as horrific as all of this is, which we will get to, please set for us the context of October 7th, because one of the things that is often missing from the conversation is decades upon decades of the atrocity of apartheid,
right,
called by Jimmy Carter, called by Desmond Tutu. Please set for us the context, the socio-economic political context of October 7th, because as bad as things are right now, it didn't start in the aftermath of October 7th. So give us the context, Imam. Thank you.
Right. First of all, let me just say that I'm incredibly grateful to you for always standing for justice. We've been together on the front lines on many issues, and it's been an honor to stand with you against police brutality, against all sorts of injustices here and beyond. And oftentimes when we talk about context, I don't think people realize how close this is to home. Over 150,000 U.S. police officers have been trained by the Israeli occupation forces.
Exactly.
The IDF trains our police departments. The knee on the neck of George Floyd was a tactic that was learned by the IDF. And so this brutality has been in our streets for a long time. It just has not been recognized as emanating from the same brutality that the Palestinian people have been facing for over 7 decades. When Ferguson took place, the protesters in Ferguson were learning how to deal with the tear gas canisters from Palestinian protesters that have been facing those same canisters. And so we have to first and foremost understand that there are many intersections between white supremacy at home and brutality at home and abroad, that foreign policy and domestic policy, when you're talking about militarization, are referring to the exact same machine that unfortunately has led to the oppression of people all over the world. Now, when it comes to this particular cause, you rightfully recognize this, that Malcolm X went to Gaza in 1964. He wrote an essay called Zionist Logic. I recommend everyone to look into that. And he connected white supremacy to Zionism. Right. And the fact that this is a settler colonial project, that Israel was established by the British to serve as a dividing force between the Middle East and Africa, and to serve as a military outpost where millions of indigenous people would be driven out of their land and suppressed. And that would essentially serve as, our Western military, interest base in the Middle East. Yeah. And so it was established that way. It is an extension of white supremacy. You talk about Angela Davis, you talk about, SNCC, you talk about all of the groups and the brilliant minds. James Baldwin, who said that, one of the greatest lies of Israel is that it's portrayed to be just some normal state. It's as if it's just been a decades or a centuries long, strife between Muslims and Jews. And that's not the case. Right. What you had Palestine, you had a Palestinian state, you had Palestinian currency, you had Palestinian passports, you had an indigenous people that have been there for generations and generations and generations, who had never inflicted trauma on the Jewish people. In fact, Jews had lived in that area, albeit a minority, a small minority, for generations, protected by Palestinian Muslims and Christians for generations. And so you had an indigenous people there. And in the aftermath of the Holocaust, the British created a state on a land that was already occupied by an indigenous group of people, drove them out of their land into these small cutouts within what is historical Palestine, robbed them of their identity. There is no longer a Palestinian state. There is no longer a Palestinian passport. There is no such thing as a Palestinian citizen as far as the global order is concerned, and has regularly expanded into that territory and driven people out of their homes routinely, bringing forth, immigrants from Long Island, New York, and different places where settlers literally can walk into a home today and before October 7th and just drive people out of their homes with the full protection of the state. What that looks like, so that people can actually visualize this, and this is not an exaggeration, at any given moment, Jewish settlers from the United States or Europe or anywhere else can walk into a home that has been part of a family for 800, 900 years and pop a grandma upside the head, throw her out with rifles in their hands, and the Israeli military will protect that occupation because this expands that land. Now, what has happened prior to October 7th is that every single human rights organization in the world has declared this a state of apartheid.
Thank you.
The people who most faced apartheid in South Africa, Nelson Mandela said, "Our freedom is incomplete until the Palestinians are free." Right. Desmond Tutu, as you mentioned. Those that faced apartheid in South Africa have said that the situation in Palestine is worse than what the situation in South Africa was.
That's right.
Not the same, worse than what the situation in South Africa was. Those were the words of Desmond Tutu. Apartheid is a legal term. It means that there are two separate laws for two separate peoples. There's literally an apartheid wall that Jimmy Carter wrote about. And you have millions of people that have been starved, that have had their homes stolen from them. Their olive trees are being mowed over regularly. Their cemeteries have been destroyed. Every single element of human dignity has been taken away from them. And you keep on squeezing these people. And last year was the most aggressive settlement expansion in the history of the formation of Israel. Over 16,000 new units. Every time an illegal settlement is built, that means another Palestinian village is destroyed.
Right.
You keep driving people into these places. And why is the United States so complicit? Because the US finances this apartheid, and the US has protected Israel in the international arena all along by being the one vote to protect Israel on the Security Council time and time again from facing any repercussions. And now penalizing South Africa for bringing forth a criminal case against Israel at the ICJ. And now even protecting Israel when Israel kills American citizens, Israel, American journalists, Israel kills American citizens, and the United States, instead of going to bat for its own citizens, goes to bat for Israel to make sure that it can continue to do this. So this genocide did not just start on October 7th. This extermination of the Palestinian people is textbook colonialism. The American mind has been led to believe that this is just another war between those barbaric brown and black people, because in Africa and in the Middle East, all they do is kill and fight each other. And, you know, we have to go in there with our benevolent democracy and civilize these people. And that's why you get Iraq. That's why you get Afghanistan. That's why you get all of these different wars and these drone strikes in Africa and in the Middle East, because the idea is that these people are barbaric and they need to be securitized, surveilled, bombed, that we need to have a separate policy for them. Meanwhile, the rest of the world sees the United States now as a partner in genocide. And that's why in the United Nations, I'll end with this, I know this was a long rant, but
no, man,
in the
good.
UN, you know, one of the things that's most bothersome is that people, you know, that people tend to think that we've got this right and the whole world has this wrong. In the United Nations, almost every nation in the world, almost every nation in the entire world voted for Israel to end its illegal occupation of Palestine within the next 12 months. You've got the United States and these handful of nations that most people can't even name.
Thank you.
That stand against that. And what do you call it when Americans think that they're the only ones that have got this right? You call it American exceptionalism, which is usually just another term for white supremacy, right? That we've got this right, no one else has figured this out. Therefore, we must continue what is now, by the way, a journal came out today that over 300,000 deaths in less than a year, over 300,000 deaths in less than a year could be attributed to this genocide.
Right.
That means your miscarriages, that means your cancer patients, that means people dying from very preventable diseases, because you have destroyed all of Gaza. You've literally dropped more bombs on Gaza than Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And all of that is with our taxpayer dollars. And all of that is with the protection of this administration. And all of that is driven by a foreign lobby, which is AIPAC. And you can just read about your favorite politician and how much money they take from AIPAC, and that explains it all. Follow the money. Always follow the money. And it will explain everything.
Yeah. There's so much that I would like to get to with this. I know we only have you for a short time, and I really appreciate you being able to, you know, break down not even the complexities, because that was actually a question I wanted to ask you. What do you say to people who say, oh, this is such a complex issue, and, you know, it's just, you know, it's a battle over land, you know, the Jews who think they have a right to the land, and the Palestinian people. To me, and I think you could expound on this a bit better than I can, but I don't see this as a complex issue. I see this as illegal occupation. I see this as apartheid. And I see this as, I wish it was, I think it may be complex in how we figure it out, but I feel like it's as simple as give those people their homes back. You have people, Palestinian people, who still have the keys to their homes around their neck to this day. And these are current generations. So could you please just expound on why this is not complex, please?
No, thank you so much. And the way that you put it is really, really profound. It may be complex in how you figure it out. It's not complex in how it started or how we got here. America likes to both sides what it can't morally reconcile to the average person. We both sides it. We just say that, hey, you know, this is just, we just need reconciliation. We need peace talks. But of course, The problem is as we all know, that peace is not the absence of violence, it's the presence of justice. And there has been no justice here. No human beings would live and silently allow themselves to be aggressed upon this way for decades, without looking for ways to fight back. And the reality is that, you have an American occupation. This is an American occupation because America protects Israel in the international arena. All we're saying is subject Israel to international human rights law.
Exactly.
Isn't that supposed to be what we're supposed to do? Like, it's very simple. There's a reason why we have criminal justice lawyers, right? There's a reason why we have international human rights lawyers, right? These international structures were set up by you. So why can't you even abide by the same standards that you're holding the rest of the world accountable to, and using it as an excuse to go and exploit their resources? So it's not complicated. When you have a group of people that have been living in a place for generations that did not commit a crime. Palestinians didn't carry out the Holocaust. Europe carried out the Holocaust, right? Germany carried out the Holocaust. America turned away Jewish refugees from the Holocaust. You don't go to a group of people that had nothing to do with this and drive them out of their homes when they had absolutely nothing to do with Europe's crimes. So the Palestinian people have been paying for Europe's crimes. They've been paying for America's crimes. And the reality is that all we're saying is hold yourself accountable to the same laws that you've been policing the world with, right? And if you do, then you fail at every single threshold. There is no rational justification for it. And I'll also say this on the religious part of this. Till today, I don't think people really grasp this. Palestinian Christians and Muslims have lived together in peace and harmony for generations. A Muslim family holds the keys to the Holy Sepulchre. That's 1,000 years of that. In my family, I have Palestinian Christians and Muslims intermarried. You can listen to the speeches from Bethlehem of Reverend Munder Isaac and Mitri Rahib. I mean, Palestinian Muslims and Christians have lived together for generations. Palestinian Muslims and Christians have protected the Jewish right to worship peacefully and to not undergo what they underwent in Europe. So this is not about Muslims and Christians against Jews, right? Because people often forget Palestinians are not just Muslims, right? It's actually one of the most ironic things about this entire thing is that you've got white evangelicals, right? The evangelical church, which is, fueling this occupation ideologically, financially, in every way.
That's right.
Right? And at the same time, ignoring Palestinian Christians, which make up a significant portion of the Palestinian population. The third oldest church in Christianity was bombed in Gaza.
Exactly.
Every single Christian hospital has been bombed in Gaza. So you're ignoring Palestinian Christians as a whole. What I tell people to pay attention to is the fact that the movement for the freedom of Palestine is actually a multi-faith movement. It's actually a multiracial movement. There are Jews against Zionism. Look up Jewish Voice for Peace. Look up If Not Now. On every college campus where you had these encampments that have been shut down brutally by these police departments and by these administrations, you had a significant Jewish presence at every single one of those encampments. I went to many of those encampments. I'm not exaggerating when I say that half of those encampments, there were more Jews than Muslims protesting the occupation. Half of them had more Jews than Muslims protesting the occupation. So this is not about Muslims and Christians fighting Jews, Palestinian Muslims and Christians fighting Jews. This is textbook colonialism. You established a settler colonial state. This is the last European settler colonial state in that region. And you continue to expand it and drive the indigenous Palestinians into these smaller pockets, and then tell them that they have no way to resist that occupation violently or non-violently, by the way, because look at the laws on the books here that prohibit boycotting Israel. Do you know that when you become an elementary school teacher in Texas, you have to sign an oath that you will not boycott Israel? There was a whole movement, a movie about that, about a Palestinian school teacher that lost her job because she refused to sign an oath that she wouldn't boycott Israel. Why are Americans okay with this? Why are we protecting a foreign colonial entity, right? And at the same time, depleting the tax dollars that should go to building up the streets here in the United States, helping people here get back up. Instead, we're sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to Israel, and then we're penalizing Americans for protesting that occupation. So it doesn't make sense. And when a person just peels a thin layer, it doesn't take much to realize this isn't simply an issue of people that have been fighting each other. It doesn't take much to peel that layer. And so when someone comes up to me and says, well, what's the solution? You know, Malcolm has this famous saying about if you stick a knife in his back 9 inches and then pull it 3 inches out,
Right.
it's still 6 inches in.
Exactly.
Right? You don't put your foot on the neck of someone, starve them, bomb them, genocide them, and then say, come up with a solution.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. The
No.
solution is end the occupation. The solution is end the apartheid. The solution is Israel needs to be held accountable to international law. The solution is that the double standards need to stop, and that the average American needs to wake up and realize that the brutality over there is woven into our society over here. Our police departments literally are using Israeli occupational tactics on our streets here in Dallas and beyond, in Minnesota and in different places. Our government is literally more accountable to a foreign entity to protect its ability to brutalize people than it is to protect American citizens from brutality when they're brutalized by our own dollars.
And can you speak to the link between the Black struggle and the Palestinian struggle? Because on Ta-Nehisi Coates, he just came out with an article recently, and he said, I have a deep-seated fear that the Black struggle ultimately at its root is really just about narrow Black interests. And I see this in this upcoming election because we have the potential to have the first female Black president. And it's hard for me as a Black woman to really get excited about that if it's at the expense of another people. I, like Fannie Lou Hamer, I believe, said, we're not free until everybody's free. And so could you just speak to that, the link between our struggles and then how we apply that to this upcoming election?
First of all, I want to appreciate that what you just said is so rare to hear in today's climate, because it's called moral consistency, and it has been incredibly hard to come across moral consistency. So thank you. I think what you just said is far more eloquent than anything that I could say in this regard. It's called moral consistency. It's as simple as that. How do you hold, America's militarization of its police departments accountable without holding America's military policies accountable? Foreign policy is America's greatest global extension of white supremacy. So how do you hold that accountable and rein that in? How do you speak about this through only one facet? There has been a brilliant historical connection between the freedom for Black people in America and the freedom of Palestinians abroad. First and foremost, Palestinians are made up of multiple races and multiple peoples. So there are
Black Palestinians too. I need people to know that.
Lots of, just like when we've erased Palestinian Christians, right? Lots of Afro-Palestinians, especially in Gaza, by the way.
Right.
Especially,
you have a Palestine borders Africa, right? It's right there. So it's not hard to see it geographically in that regard. But also there was the recognition, as I mentioned, when you talk about Fred Hampton and you talk about the Black Panther Party and their meeting with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, when you talk about Malcolm X, when you talk about Angela Davis, when you talk about Nelson Mandela, when you talk about James Baldwin, when you talk about Muhammad Ali, there isn't a single person that you come across except that they recognize the connection of the struggle. Muhammad Ali, so right now Lebanon is being bombed and it didn't even make the front page. Oh, can you imagine over 500 people were bombed in Lebanon? Over 500 people were killed in Lebanon. And it wasn't even on the front page of CNN. I actually checked. You had to scroll down to see this little tab right underneath, something about P. Diddy, right? Whatever it is, right? Like you had to scroll down to find 500 human beings being killed, right? Muhammad Ali went to Lebanon. He visited Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. Muhammad Ali stood for the Palestinian people. Muhammad Ali wore the keffiyeh, which is being banned right now on campuses, right? This cloth that stands for Palestinian liberation. You cannot speak about the freedom of Black people in America without speaking about the freedom of Palestinians, and vice versa. Because white supremacy is white supremacy. And you can't target one element of it without speaking about it as a whole, because it's a disease and it's a poison that has manifested itself in multiple forms of policy. And so I think that it's absolutely important for people to understand, look, moral consistency means, and this is where it gets really uncomfortable, it means that you're going to have to hold people accountable.
Right.
You really don't want to hold accountable sometimes. And so, I think that if you read into the works of Dr. Cornel West, who I know is running for president right now, Dr. Cornel West lost his tenure at Harvard because he was pro-Palestinian, right? This brilliant Black thinker, in his own words, lost his tenure at Harvard for that reason. You could go down the list of academics and thinkers and revolutionaries, but I think what it comes down to is having moral consistency. Would we accept for any group of people to live under this type of brutality, under this type of occupation, and then tell them that they have absolutely no way to fight back, that even non-violent forms of resistance are to be criminalized, and that we should celebrate symbolic victory when that symbolic victory is inherently tied to ongoing real oppression, right? And so the reality is that this administration is complicit in this genocide.
It is.
Right? How do you hold this administration accountable, because it is complicit in this genocide? I understand what Donald Trump is saying. Trump is saying he's going to be worse, right? And we knew exactly who Donald Trump is. I don't have to whitewash Trump, right? For lack of a better word here, right? But I don't have to do that to understand that this administration is currently engaged in this genocide. It could have stopped this a long time ago by an arms embargo on Israel. It's as simple as that. You want this genocide to stop? Stop sending the weapons.
Right.
Funneling the weapons. Stop giving Israel the firepower to literally rain hell on the Palestinian people and then saying that we're for a ceasefire. You can't be for a ceasefire if you're providing the firepower.
Exactly.
Hold the weapons back, and then you'll see peace, right? Otherwise, you are not only a major party to this, but you're actually the primary guilty party, because you're keeping this going and you're making sure that no one else has the ability to stop it.
Yeah. Omar, I need to ask this. What can we do? I could talk to you all day. You're brilliant. You're on point. What can we do? You're out there on the front lines. What's the solution? What can we do? I also want to add that not only is Israel guilty, the United States is guilty. I also want to add that, unfortunately, on top of all of that, this country must be concerned, as far as I'm concerned, about an embargo, an arms embargo, as well as the importance of rebuilding what has been torn down, what has been destroyed, so that healing can begin. And in that healing, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be vital that this country and other countries, just as there was a Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, there must be such a plan to rebuild Gaza, to rebuild Palestine for the indigenous people. I got to get that out there. But I'm asking you, what can we do now? Those of us who are saying, yeah, this is wrong, what can we do? What are the steps necessary so we can bring about justice and bring about a lasting peace?
First and foremost, it certainly is awareness. And I have to say that despite all of the social media suppression, accounts have been shut down across the board for simply raising awareness. Social media has played a huge role in changing the narrative here. So American public opinion is switching. There are young people in particular, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and beyond, that are standing together against this. So continue to spread awareness, read, educate yourself on it. I recommend people to definitely read Coates, to definitely read Baldwin, to read Malcolm's essay on Zionist logic, to read Jimmy Carter, to read, right? Rashid Khalidi, to read Ilan Papp, who's an Israeli historian on this war on Palestine and the history of the occupation. So educate yourself, spread that awareness to others as well. Make sure that people hear about what's happening, no matter where they are. And on top of that, I think what's important is be present. Look, one of the things that made us come together in Dallas was our ability to be present for each other.
Right.
We came together for Jordan Edwards. We came together for Botham Jean.
Right.
We came, and we should have. We stood together as communities. It's been crickets when it comes to Palestine. There's a term, PEP, progressive except for Palestine. We see it, we feel it.
Wow.
And so to be present is very important in the demonstrations, to be present for the students right now that are being penalized at UTD for simply protesting this genocide. I mean, imagine this, and you know, people need to understand how twisted this all is. UTD, what are these encampments about? Our universities are investing in weapons manufacturers with tuition dollars. And so here you have General Dynamics in Garland, Texas. UTD invests tuition dollars into General Dynamics that manufactures the exact weapons that are being dropped right now on Gaza. So can you imagine, you have students at UTD, their tuition dollars are being used to fund the manufacturing of the bombs that are falling on Gaza. Think about how crazy that is, right? And like, what exactly are we protesting?
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to learn about the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. These students were calling for divestments, to divest from these companies, and that's why they were penalized. Instead of the university being responsive to them, the university penalized these students for raising awareness about UTD's investment into General Dynamics. So learn about the strategy, because the BDS movement was directly given to us by our brethren in South Africa.
Thank you.
It came out of Nelson Mandela,
That's
Desmond Tutu, and that brilliant force. It is from South Africa that we adopted the strategy. So get involved, because that is what nonviolent resistance looks like in our day and age and where we are. Get involved, be present at the demonstrations. Pastor Haynes, I just wanted to thank you, by the way, because I know that you and your wife you just saw a demonstration and you immediately joined. I want to thank both of you for your moral consistency. It is absolutely refreshing. You know, when your usual friends go silent, right?
Man.
And it's those few voices that don't go silent that really, you know, give you the determination and give you the energy to keep going. So just thank you to both of you for your consistency, for your integrity. And I think let's just bring our communities together and recognize that our oppression is one, so our solidarity has to be one as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And you just spoke to, like, I've been so frustrated. I talk to my dad about this almost every day. It's heartbreaking. And
He told me, by the way.
Okay, good. Yeah, I feel like
that my daughter, I need to be able to tell my daughter I'm doing something. So.
Yeah, so I appreciate you speaking to the moral consistency. So I'm glad that I am a moral consistent person.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Yes, we are. Omar, you're a gift. Please know that we are in this with you, and whatever we can do, we are together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you both.
Thank you. All right, so thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I hope it's been enlightening and has provoked you into thinking about the implications of, you know, this upcoming election, how we can hold our administration and elected officials accountable for what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. And if you haven't already, make sure you go back and listen to episode 1, and make sure you follow us on our social media. So the Haynes Remix, that's for TikTok and Instagram. And if you want to follow me and see my shenanigans, as I like to say, on social media, I am Abeni Jewel. It's ABENI. And also, please, if you're not watching us on YouTube, you can make sure to subscribe to us there. It's under my dad's name. It's just Frederick Haynes. You can find it with a simple search. And then, Dad, do you want people to follow you?
Yeah, I'm Frederick Douglass Haynes, as I will continue to emphasize Douglass after the silver-tongued orator for freedom and justice That's right, Frederick Douglass.
Okay,
Haynes,
but that's not what your name is on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, we need to correct that then. But anyway, you can follow me at FH Unscripted, especially on the gram. We still use Twitter for those of us down who refuse to go with the X of Elon Musk. But anyway, on a very serious tip, also, if you have additionals, you can follow us, especially when it comes to what we're doing with the remix, the Haynes Remix, fdhministries.org. And I want you to please get excited already about our next episode, because we come with the fire every single episode. And next week, we have a special conversation about black men and the vote, young people and the vote. This campaign, this election season is crucial. It's hot. And brothers, we got some concerns, don't we? And so we got Dr. Michael Sorrell, president of Paul Quinn College, who is both an activist and an academic. He is going to be sharing with us. And so please tune in for what promises to be provocative as well as enlightening and inspirational. That's how we roll on the Haynes Remix.
So this is Abeni Jewel Haynes.
And I am Frederick Douglass Haynes III.
And this was
the Haynes Remix.